back to you again, dear followers of Sam Bubbles, and we thank you for your continued support for us. We will continue with you and with you. Like, share, subscribe, and come to us so that we can enter the summary of this solid movie. It begins in the middle of the night with a man named Prime, and he's watching his favorite program from He Will Win a Million. And in the meantime, while he was engaged in the program, he received a call on his phone from his wife, Jody, and this was to check on his daughter because she was tired and her temperature was very high. So he sold her money to his friend, Choti, on Sunday of the following week. And here we understand that he works for a very rich man in a city far away from the village he lives in. And the job is that he takes care of his requests, cleans the villa for him, and guards it. This is at a time when the rich man is not in the villa. And after he hangs up with his wife, he goes to the second floor of the villa and stands at a large cupboard with many knives and cleavers, and takes a cleaver sharpener. He pulled out a knife and took them to the bathroom. There was a little girl in the bathroom who was 15 years old and passed out. What was terrifying was that he started cutting this girl with lines without any mercy. Then we went to the house of a police officer named Bondi, and he was preparing himself to go to work and took his daughter with him on his way to get her to her school. And after he goes to the center and sits at his desk, a young man named Mandel comes to him to inform him that his daughter is missing. He has been there for a day, and they learn that this is his only daughter who has left the world. Also, today is her birthday, and that he was dating her to get her a big gift to make her happy, and the workers were trying. He begs him to file a report with him, but Pandey is cold-blooded and tells him that she is not young enough to get lost and will surely return home. Workers were blaming him that he was the one who was negligent in his daughter's case, and that if he had been following her and asking about her, she would not have been lost. And he would leave my hand to him in a long, broad lecture that had nothing to do with it. Basically, with the report, and all of this is to tell him that he is the reason for the loss of his daughter, and that every action has a real reaction. Long live India. Finally, I have some money for him from what he has. I need him to be a little patient with the loss of his daughter. In Beirut, he is sad and hung up, hanging a picture of his daughter on the missing children's board in the center. Because if anyone could recognize her before the sun went down, there would be some children playing football with each other in the street. And while they were playing, their ball fell into the sewer next to them. In Beirut, one of them is named Ali, and he is the one who brings it, because it is his turn to answer the ball. When it falls, while he was getting the ball, he notices that there are human hands in the heart of the sewers, so he quickly goes out and informs the police so that they can see her. After the police come and gather all the residents of Rajiv's town and the residents of Sector 36, this is to understand what the matter is with the hands that they found in these sewers, in your house. Pandey, and he says he told him that he had not received a report before about the loss of a child, neither from the town nor from the sector. And this sewer originally belonged to a second village entirely, and he blamed the matter so as not to cause panic among the people. The officer calmed down from the people's fear and gave money to the boy, who was very happy with it. Prim was watching from above. On the same night, the boy was at home watching with his family. His mother sent him to buy eggs. He did not know what was waiting for him. Prim was hiding in the dark and gave the boy chocolates. In the meantime, he drugged him and kidnapped him. Such as fighting a child who was happy about this thing. Beirut drugged Prime and dragged him inside the villa. He takes him to the second floor and raises him in the bed. He keeps talking to him for a while to calm him down and tries to break the fear that is between them. When he feels that he is calm, he unties the rope for him and quickly tries to tell me that he is running away. But Prime is fumbling with caution, so I stay with him, and then he keeps giving him a look full of pity, and he starts to think what his uncle used to do to him in the past, is that his uncle used to be locked in the slaughterhouse with the sheep in the past, and this was because he worked with him in the butcher shop. And also, everyone in the house would bring him some food like that. And the worst of all was that he used to assault him at times, and when he finished, he had enough of it. He was fed up with his uncle. He kept the lines and started cutting him until he died, and this is considered the least he could do for him. Frankly, after he finishes these tragic memories, we don't know what he did. He goes to prepare this food because he works in fast food and gets it delivered to homes through his friend Choti while he's at it. He wanted Choti to order, from his talk with him, to be in doubt that the meat he was using for food was not regular meat, and that it was brown human meat. This was because his owner was refusing to thaw the food at all, and he went to the sewer to throw away what was left of the body. And here we understood that this was the body of mine, and that it was the girl who was there. He was kidnapped in the first place, and the exact same thing happened to her. And we know that he kidnaps children from their families, kills them, makes fast food from them, and sells them to people like Tikawai, and what is left of their organs is sold as well. And it is not far off that Bindal's daughter is one of these children. This, of course, remains the actions of someone who has no heart in the first place. After this night ends, the second day ends. We go to the villa of the rich man who works for him, and whose name we know is Basi, and he will be with his little granddaughter to attend her birthday with her. Then we go back to the second prime, and he continues with his crimes that he is doing, and that he is engaged in kidnapping children. May God enlighten. One after the other, and not a day passed until he kidnapped a child from his family. On the other side, we see Bandi bringing his daughter to take her with him to the theatrical party that is being held in the town. And we discover that he is the one who presents these theatrical performances in order to prove to his daughter that he loves her and does anything she asks for, in order to please her. And at one point he was sitting in the changing room to prepare himself for the second part of the show. A man named Josh came in to follow up with him on the report he had submitted about his missing daughter. What we know is that she has been missing for 4 days, and her name is Chunmuki. What is strange is that the same girl who works with him appears. Prime is in Basi's villa, and Ban tells him that he is working on the case and that he wants to attack him tomorrow at the station. And Josh gets angry because he is not interested in what he says, his daughter, or the case at all, and that this is his job, and he's supposed to care a little about that. And he keeps telling him something that has a negative effect on him, and made him become angry with him. Especially when he brought up his daughter's history on the matter and taught him that it was not because he was a police officer that he did not live his life like the rest of the people, and that every day 1,000 of them came to him in the same condition as him. And he continued to say a lot of things to him, and he was so fanatical that it did not even cross his mind that he went on stage, and he was shocked. And in return, his wife is very embarrassed by the actions he is doing, but he goes to her and understands the reason that made him do this. And when he asks about his daughter, Fido tells his wife that she has gone to the bathroom and is coming back. So he is very slandering her for kidnapping, like the children whose workers have been kidnapping these days. And in fact, his suspicion is right, and it is Prime. At the party, he is disguised and quickly gets snatched from among the people in his hand, and without anyone noticing him, he quickly runs away with it in the car. At this time, he spots Bandi, so he runs at him as fast as he can to stop him. But when Ibrahim first saw him coming, he quickly ran away to escape from him, and after running cord, he was able to run away from him completely and stay away from him completely. And he continued running to the house and talking to his wife, and informing her that he was sending her some of the videotapes he had and asking her to take them somewhere that no one knows how to reach him permanently. And we do not know what is important about these tapes, so that he talks to his wife about them in this way. And after that, we go to Bonnie while he is with Fida in the hospital to check on her. And then his wife scolds him and tells him that you are unable to protect your daughter and you do not know how to return people's missing children. On the other hand, Bondi hears the words and is unable to speak a word, and he remains sitting in shock at himself that he was unable to protect his daughter and makes a covenant between him and her. He wants to return the rights of his daughter and the children of the kidnapped people and take revenge on this criminal and put him in prison. The next day, a new kidnapping case occurs of a new child named Vivan, who is in a very clean city in India, but we do not know who the criminal is this time. We return again to Pandey while he is in the center, and he was, at that time, Shomki's report will be completed, and her father is Josh, the same man who was harassing him in the theater. And at the same time in his villa, Basi is sitting eating his breakfast and watching the news. And at that time, all the news is talking about the kidnapping of the child in front of his school, and the world is completely upside down. The meaning of the word. Also, the police sent out periodic campaigns to search for him. This is unlike the children of poor people, where no one was asking about them, and no one came forward to help them. After a while, Pandey arrives at my door, and the one who opens it is Prime, so he can help Pandey. And he asks Posse how many questions like this about Chucky because of her. She was working for him, and before he asked Pandey the first question, they cut off Basi and learned about his long history and his relationship with senior police officers, and that they were from the same batch as him. And this was a move on his part to be careful with him in his questions, or in other words, not to complete the investigation with him in the first place and walk away. But then Josh intervened in their house. Posse is the one who kidnapped his daughter, and that he is accustomed to her, and that she is still with him in the villa. But Pandey asks him to go out and let him finish his work. And after what happened, Posse goes to call Pandey's boss, whose name is Johar, and this is to leave him before he exposes him. And Pandey actually did after this call. He left the villa, but Prime went after him and kept saying some incomprehensible words to him. So Basbua Pandey goes to the head of the jewels to complete with him the follow-up of the story of the kidnapping of the child Vivan. And there he informs him that he is sure that Basi is the one who kidnapped Chucky. And what makes him confident in this way is the testimony of her father, Josh, at the time he said. He told him that the taxi driver who arrived confirmed to him that it had arrived at the door of the villa, and that the one who took it from him was Prime. At that time, Johar asked him to forget about these child kidnapping cases at all and focus only on the tasks that he would be assigned, and he threatened that if I showed my clothes a second time, it would be transferred to him. His service is in a place very far from his town, and not far away either. They stop working completely, and then they leave Bondi, and he is shocked by what he heard, and he remains confused about his situation. And he comes back to the center again, and he does not know how to think about it, but he comes back to him again when he saw on the driver's phone that the last call he made was Wei. He has been with Prime for a few days, and when he returns to him, he explains to him that all the clues and evidence that prove that Basi is accused in his case are Shoki, and when Johar hears from him, he is shocked by his response, which is that he decided to suspend him from work. And this is because he violated his warnings before he walked. And while he was walking, he heard about. The news is that the police were able to return the child, Vivan, to his family in less than 2 days. And because of this, Johar is promoted and holds a higher position, and his place is taken by the new police commissioner, whose name is Boban. And a week after Pandey stopped working, he goes to monitor Prime and sees what he is doing to catch any evidence on Basi. He condemns him, and after a while he gets injured and goes to sit with his assistant, whose name is Patak. While they are sitting together, he thinks of the man who was standing in the ambulance when his daughter was kidnapped, Fido. And he has a suspicion that this man is working with the criminal who tried to kidnap his daughter at the time of the party. So they both quickly go to the hospital, and it comes to me that he is taking him. The first pen confesses everything and tells them that Prime is the one who plans everything and that he is just a driver. The next day, Pandey arrives at the center, and there he meets the new chief, Boban. At that time, Johar introduces them to each other and leaves and walks while in the car. He talks to Tak on the phone and asks him to do a quick service for him. In exchange for this service, he is a worker at work, and we know that he was asked to show him the place where Bondi hid an ambulance driver. And this is to send people to kill him before he speaks. And this is because he got news that he confessed to Prime, and this means that Bossy will attack a soft man, and a gang will actually reach the place. The one who is imprisoned has an ambulance driver, and it comes to me at the second that he is taking Pupon Pandey with him in the car, and learn from him all the details of the kidnapping cases that happened recently. He is certain that Bossy has something to do with all these cases, and they quickly go to the place where the driver is imprisoned in order to hear the confession from him. But they arrive late, and the gang does. They arrived before them and kidnapped him, and thus the only evidence they had disappeared. At that moment, Bandy gets very angry with Patek because he didn't know how to keep him safe until he came to him. They have no choice but to arrest Prime and interrogate him. They actually bring Prime to the station, and before they torture him or do anything to him, he confesses that he is the one who tried to kidnap his daughter from the party. And at that time he was talking a lot of unrelated things, and it seemed that he was psychologically disturbed, and something was not clear. And they knew that he would answer all the questions they wanted, but quickly so that he could listen to his favorite program. The first question was, he knows something about Shuki's kidnapping, but the strange thing is that he responds to him very coldly and tells him that he is the one who killed her and strangled her with his hand. When they ask Bandy about the reason for killing her, he admits that the last time she was in the villa, she spoke to him in a bad way and did not respect him. So he killed her. She does not need anything. So he tells him what happened in detail, and this is in order to understand more, think more, and know the real reason that makes him do this. After a lot of talk and description from Prime, Pandy discovered that he has had a psychological complex since he was young, and the reason for it is his uncle. Because of this complex, he kidnaps children and does to them what his uncle used to do to him in the past. In the end, he kills them and sells their organs. And Bandy asked him what he was doing with the rest of the bodies, so he told him that he separates all the body parts from each other and buries them in the garden of his villa and throws the rest of the body and bones in the sewers. He told them that sometimes he used to eat from the meat that was left over. And when they asked Bandy about the number of children he kidnapped them and killed them. He replies to him and tells him that there are more than 24 children, and that among them is the child to whom he gave a reward. So Bandy got very angry with him and was going to kill him, but he calmed down again in order to know more from him. This is because he wants to know what his relationship is to this matter, but he does not agree to respond to Besik. This question specifically, they took Bandy, and he loves him until he sees how he will deal with him. And then Prime will be on edge because his program will start in 5 minutes, and he will not be able to hear him. And the strange thing about him is that he does not care that he will go to hell, and that the noose will be wrapped around his neck after all the confessions he said himself. At that time we see the gang that kidnapped the driver take him to a deserted place and cut his body into pieces, and in the end they burn all the remains. And the next morning, Bandy goes with God's blessing to tell him about the place where the children are buried, and there he digs himself and takes out the remains of the decomposed bodies. And not only that, then he also pulls out Choki's bag from under the dirt to prove to them that he is the one who killed her with his own hands. The strange thing is that he was happy with all of this, and nothing mattered to him. In return, the police pull out the rest of the children's remains from the sewers. After all of this, Bossy is arrested, and they are transferred to prison so that he can control them. They are sentenced to death, and the news spreads all over India. Of course, Bossy, with all his connections, manages to distance himself from the crime and directs all the accusations at the Prime. In return, Pandey is fired from his job, and the one who is promoted is Bhuban and takes a higher position. Indeed, India lives. After the situation calms down, Pandey returns and calls Bhuban. He asks him to meet Prime for the last time because he has something on his mind that he wants to get to. He actually goes to meet him and starts talking to him. The reason for the meeting is that he wants to know where Prime spends his money, which he earned from selling organs. So Prime realizes that he was delivering them to his wife through his friend Choti. He himself is the ambulance driver, so Bandy tells him that the money never reached his wife, and that his friend was deceiving him and taking the money for himself. This is a move from him to trap him with words and make him say that Bassi was involved in the crime, and because he was waiting for him to tell him just one thread that would lead Bassi to the gallows. He goes back to his job again and gets promoted again. He actually finds out from him what he wants, which are the tapes and recordings that he used to record and that he hid with his wife, which contained the crimes that he used to commit. At night, he meets Pat and asks him for a laptop, so he takes it from him and gets on the bus and travels to the country where Prime is. There, he meets. His wife asks him for the tapes that Prime sent her a week ago, and she gives them to him because she doesn't know what's in them at all. The surprise is that he finds everything in them that he expected could get him into trouble. After he takes the recordings, he goes and stands on the road to find transportation that will take him back to town again, which is in it. And of course at that time the news reached Jawhar from his birds that Pandey met Prime and that he went to his wife to take the recordings from her. And in order to save Bossy from execution, Pandey sent a gang to finish him off. And Pandey at that time stood on the road for an hour in order to find a car to take him. But finally he finds a car and it takes him with her on her way. And the problem here is that he does not know that he rode with the gang that will finish him off. And the surprise is that it turns out that it is the same gang that kidnapped the ambulance driver and finished him off. After he rides with them and starts talking to them, they find out that they are lost in the place and that they do not know how to reach their address. So when he sees the address, whoever wants to reach him, I find a picture of him, and thus he falls into the trap. Then one of them comes from behind him and finishes him off, and the other cuts his throat without any mercy. Then they open his bag and destroy all the recordings in it. 6 months after his death, Bossy is released, and Prime is sentenced to death, and the assistant is tired. His Batak and I turn out to be the bird that was monitoring all of Pandey's movements. In the end, Pandey gets stuck on the missing persons board. At the end of the movie, a parcel is sent to Batak's assistant at home. He is shocked when he finds another copy of Posse's recordings up to here. Our movie ends. Like, share, subscribe, and see you. The next movie with Sam Bubbles.